Today is June the 23rd, 2015. My name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University, and today I'm in Stillwater to speak with Glen Bays, and this is part of our Cowboy in every county project. So thank you for having me today. Let's start with having you tell us when and where you were born.
I was born here in Stillwater in a house that's still standing on a street not very far from us, and that was in that was August the 12th, 1931.
So coming up on a birthday.
Yeah.
What did your parents do for a living?
They farmed in Noble County, but near the Payne County line, so we were often in Stillwater, but business was done in Perry, and we didn't own the property. We had 80 acres that my dad rented, but then he also had to farm other plots that would help keep us going.
What did he grow?
Well, we had milk cows, and he began a milk route that he could pick up milk from other farmers and bring into Stillwater. So we milked a lot of cows.
Some of your chores plus others, huh?
Yes.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have a brother 3 years younger than I am. He lives here in Stillwater, Marvin, and he lives on the west side of town, and he and I were always involved with looking after the milk herd and so forth. And since I was a little bit older than him, I was supposed to be in charge, but we managed to get through it.
Supposed to be in charge. You didn't always listen?
No, he didn't always listen, and in many instances I would have to be right out in the open and say that he was smarter than I was about something, about how to handle an electric fence and that kind of thing, and so.
Well, where did you go to elementary school?
Well, there was a schoolhouse at the intersection of a road that goes down to Lake McMurtry now, and I think it's called McMurtry Road. And then when it got down just before entering the McMurtry area, the grounds, there's a road that turned to the right and went off toward Perry. Well, on that corner was a rural schoolhouse, and my mother was a school teacher, and so except for about 2 or 3 years, well, early in my schooling, I went a year or so to one teacher and a year or so to another, and then those people left, and my mother, who was a trained school teacher here from OSU, and she took over the school, and she was my teacher and all the rest of us until I got out of the 8th grade.
Kind of interesting to have your mother as your teacher.
Yes, it was, and she treated everybody the same. You had to do what she wanted.
Was it so? It was grades 1 through 8 in one building.
Mm-hmm. One building. Yeah.
How many were in your class?
Well, probably about only 4 or 5.
Okay.
Probably the maybe about 15 kids in all, and that was how we went through school.
How would you get there?
Walk.
Close enough.
There were no buses, and we most of the time walked across pastures instead of staying on roads. Sometimes you would stay on roads when there was a lot of high grass or something that snakes might be in, and so we'd stay to the roads. Or if it was really cold winter time and we had to walk back and forth, we stayed on the roads, and sometimes kids would get too cold and drop out, and somebody would have to come get them. I remember that happened to me once. But we didn't have any school buses then.
About how far was it from your house to the school? Roughly.
Something like 2 miles.
One way?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would get cold.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
You said your mother graduated from OAMC. Do you know what year?
Oh, unfortunately, I can't say what year. But,
I mean, what decade?
well, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't know quite what to say. I'd have to.
Was she married at the time, or was it before she married?
No, she married after she got out and started teaching school, which was in Noble County, and at that school that I attended, and she was my teacher for several years. And the way she met my father was when we would have school pie
Yeah.
events. Everybody would come bring their pies, and they'd get different partners, and so that's how my mother and my dad met, and we became a family.
That's pretty neat too. What was her maiden name? And I can look her up.
Stagner, Stagner.
Okay, first name?
Myrtle, Myrtle.
Okay, I can look her up in the yearbooks and see when she did. And what was your dad's first name?
Wilfred, Willfred, and I don't think he ever went to school. That he was, that didn't mean that he was stupid, but I don't think, to my knowledge, I never knew about him going to school. He was a member of a fairly large family, Bays family. There were numerous of his brothers and sisters, and I think he was one who did not choose to go to school.
Okay, so it's not for everybody.
But he wasn't dumb.
Well, do you remember the name of that school, of the rural school?
Yeah, Oak Hill District 74.
Okay. Once you finished the 8th grade, then where did you go?
Finished the 8th grade, and my mother insisted that it was time for us to move into Stillwater, because she had had too much bad luck with my older sister, who was 3 years older than I, and she had been living with my mother's sister, Iva Rusko, here in Stillwater. My sister was boarding with her Aunt Iva, but they didn't get along, and my sister didn't obey her aunt very well, and she dated people that my mom didn't want her to date, and so then Mom prevailed on my dad to move to Stillwater. So that was how we got into Stillwater.
So high school would have been Stillwater High.
Pardon?
High school would have been Stillwater High School.
Yes, yes. And I found it sort of rough going at the moment of beginning entry, because the treatment, at that time the high school was where the old building is now that's used as a meeting place, and that's where I started the school. But being from the country and not part of the town, the bullies kept us from entering certain doors. You could only enter one door if you were from the country, and you got roughed up if you didn't do that. So that was my start at high school in Stillwater. It happened later on that through my dad's work with hauling milk from the country to the creameries in town, he needed my help and bought me a small pickup truck that I, before school, went out and picked up grade A milk on farms and brought into the what was in Stillwater Creamery. And then I went to school. And but having my pickup shot me up in fame, because kids didn't have cars then. And anybody who wanted a ride asked me for a ride, and I'd take them for a ride, and then pretty soon I was pretty popular. And that's how it worked out.
Little things. Huh?
Yeah.
How early would you have to get up to do the milk work before school?
Well, you had to be on your route a little bit after sunup and get it done. And it wasn't a long route, but it was the preferred grade A milk. And so I only had about 3 farms to stop at and pick up the milk and get it in before, you had to be quick, before it could clabber or something, you know, and then I was ready to go to school.
Before refrigeration, I guess, if you think about it that way.
Yeah, that's right.
Or where was the creamery?
It was, you know, where the old post office is now? The creamery was in a block just south of where the old library is now. I don't know, I don't remember exactly what's in that area now, but it was between there and the Stillwater News Press and so.
I think it's a vacant lot right now.
Yeah,
so.
it kind of is, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So when did you graduate from high school? What year?
1945.
What was your favorite subject?
English and writing. I wasn't any good at sums. I kind of like to steer clear of those, but I liked to write, and even at one time placed 3rd in a statewide essay contest in my English class. That was kind of a high point for me. But
And what were your plans upon graduation?
I I planned to go on to college, but right at that time the Korean War broke out, and I had become a member of the local combat engineers battalion of the National Guard, the 45th Division. And immediately on the day the war broke out, which I think was just about now 50 years ago, we were mobilized and sent, I mean, all the guys in two different groups, combat engineers that I was in and infantry that other guys were in. We were all called into active service and sent for training and then sent overseas. So that was a big change.
Barely 18, I guess.
Yeah, and sent, my outfit was sent first to northern Japan to do more training before entering Korea, and also to try to keep the Russians from overrunning northern Japan. So we were there for about 6 or 7 months before they transferred us to Korea. And Korea was a real trial. The worst of the fighting had sort of gone soft. It wasn't, they hadn't quit, but especially in the wintertime, nobody liked to get out there and fight because it was very, very cold. And my work, being in an engineer battalion, was to operate what we'd call a road grader, and to maintain roads so that Army vehicles could go over them. We had 2 people who did that, myself and another soldier from Minnesota, and he and I were in the same 2-man tent, and I slept while he worked and he slept while I worked.
Right.
And but that was my job through the wintertime. And in the wintertime in Korea can be extremely cold. And there were numerous times that that I was pretty nervous, because often they would shine a bright searchlight on me to show where I ought to go with my grader to shape up airstrips that air pilots used when they were doing reconnaissance. I did that at night. You have this great big light shining on you, and you know you're always within the glow. And every so often somebody'd throw a rock at you or something. They didn't really try to do away with me, because that would mean that they'd get a lot of fire down on them. So
Still at the back of your mind the whole time, I bet.
You
Yes.
always think, I wonder how this is going to work out.
How long were you there?
Let's see, nearly 2 years. And then came back home, and after 2 I got here, and I don't know exactly the time now. But it was, I'm sorry I can't say the year.
Well, if you went in 45, it's probably 47, 48-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Right in there.
Yeah, it had to be that.
How did you get back? Did they fly you back or put you on a slow boat or what?
Yeah, it was a slow boat. We came back on a ship,
Did you?
and same way we went over. And so then I was let go, didn't have to stay anymore unless I wanted to, and I was ready to I stayed a few months with the National Guard here, but after that I was interested in going to college.
And where did you choose to go to college?
Right here.
Right here.
Yeah.
Was that because your mother had gone there, or because it was convenient, or?
Well, it was because I guess I expected to go there, and also back home I had met Betty, and we were seeing each other, and she was just here starting school, and so we kind of started school together and been together for all this time.
How did you meet her?
I had a motorcycle when I came back. The first thing I wanted to do when I came back was to buy a motorcycle. And I did. A picture of me on motorcycles back there in another room. And so I offered rides to Betty on the motorcycle, which when her mother found out, who lived in Tonkin, Oklahoma. Oh, I know how it happened. She had an uncle who was an Oklahoma highway patrolman, and he sometimes worked Stillwater, and he sent word back to Betty's folks in Duncan, you better get that girl off that motorcycle right away before she gets hurt. And so that ended that. But I kept the motorcycle for a while.
When did you get married?
1952.
You were still in college at that time?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where did you all live as a married couple?
We had apartments, various places, where we could afford to live, and of course then I could work for my dad by driving a truck for him and make some money, and I also worked part-time at the OSU library, make a little more, and Betty worked in the library too, and so that's how we got through. I had the GI Bill, of course, and allowed us to even buy a car and drive it, so it was a pretty good life.
That was the library was just being built at that time. The new one, the current one, was built in the 50s.
I don't know. It was built in the 50s, I guess, because what I'm remembering is that I was one of the early workers in the library, and so was Betty.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what year, but
I want to think it was 52-ish, around in there,
yeah,
somewhere,
okay,
somewhere in there.
Right.
So what was your job in the library?
Mostly to mind the doors and see that people didn't walk out with books unless they had checked them out.
And what was Betty's?
Well, she mostly worked in other areas, I think, putting books back on shelves and things like that.
Was there a dress code?
No,
No.
I don't remember one.
Okay.
Is there now?
No, I just wondered if there, when you see pictures and it's mostly dresses for women, no pants early in those days.
Oh, I don't think we had those.
This is
no.
okay. What did you major in?
Journalism.
Okay. Did you have a favorite professor?
Oh yeah, that was my profession, journalism, after I came back and studied there at, you had a very small journalism. You couldn't call it a school, it was kind of like a little add-on over here. But we had an excellent professor that I followed a lot. Don't ask me his name right now, I can't think of it.
It'll come to you.
And anyway, I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And so then I was hired by the, I don't know what it's called today, but it's the Oklahoma A&M magazine.
The O'Colly. Oh, that's the O'Colly newspaper?
No, it
Still
wasn't a
newspaper?
newspaper. It was put out by the university, but it was for a much wider audience. So those people who had already left school and so on. And so I was an assistant editor of that there was a main editor, and I was the assistant editor for a few years. While I was going to school.
I think there's a state magazine now that goes out to all of them.
That's
So
probably
maybe,
about the same thing.
maybe the same.
So journalism turned out to be my calling, and I stayed in it. After graduation, we went to the Muskogee Phoenix newspaper in Muskogee, where I was the chief person to decide what went into the morning newspaper. And I worked at night with other people, and we had reporters, but I was the man at the desk who decided how the paper looked and what all went in it and so on. And worked at that job for about 2 years. But then I decided I wanted to get more education, so I gave it up and moved to Evanston, Illinois, where I entered School of Journalism at Northwestern University and got a master's degree in journalism, and was under one of the reigning names in journalism at that time. It was in the school, and so that was.
And who was that?
Yeah, you were going to ask me.
You'll think about it.
I'll
Okay.
have to get that one later. But he was really a fine guy, and I was pretty much a country cousin when I went up there, and he used to take us out into the city to interview people, and I found out, hey, this is altogether different than it was back in Oklahoma. But came out of it all right, and so that was how I got my degree in journalism, and then just kind of sort of went on from there.
Well, where did you go to work after you got your master's? Just
For
take me through your career a
for the
little bit.
National Livestock Producer magazine in Chicago, which was a monthly magazine that went out to, as it said, livestock producers who liked to have that magazine. And so I was its reporter for something like 2 years, I guess, before I decided that I didn't want to settle down in a Chicago suburb and ride the train into town every day to go to high rise in the center of Chicago. That wasn't really for me. So decided to do something else, and something else was quite different. Right now I'll have to get a grasp on it and tell you a little later, I guess, what we did, but we decided over a period of a few months that what I really wanted to do was go back overseas, but under the overhang of the church. I wanted to be a religious writer and follow that for my profession from then on. And sure enough, was picked up by the Presbyterian Church USA, and put into their area of doing that sort of thing. And to this day, I'm still a member of the Presbyterian Church USA, and also am not a real what you would call I don't think somebody that they refer to a great deal, but my name is known, and I feel fine about that.
Well, where did they send you overseas?
Yeah, the first place was we went to why my brain's getting
Well, if you can't think, where was the place you spent the most time overseas? If that's easier.
I'm sorry, but I'm really helpless right at this stage. We went I'm going to have to review it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Brad had mentioned New Guinea.
Well, we didn't go to New Guinea straight.
And South Africa.
We first went to Central Africa. I guess that's the way we went. Yeah. We went to the Mindolo Ecumenical Center in Zambia, or what was then still Northern Rhodesia, and had not become Zambia yet. And so I was invited to come to the Africa Writing Center and teach writing at that, which was kind of like a small college there that had a number of different programs that it ran. Betty worked as the person who knew something about home economics in that area with women. We were on the verge of lots of people migrating from the country into the city, and they didn't know really how to live and so on. So she had a lot of home economic skills, and they had a women's training center, and then they had this Africa Writing Center that took in people who wanted to be writers from wherever they got hold of us. We even brought one guy in from one of the European countries. He wasn't an African, but he came to study there anyway. But we had Africans from all various places. And they would come for training, and from anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months at a time to find their way to do journalism the way it ought to be done. And they would be from different backgrounds, so there was a lot of kind of molding and melting together there. And we'd ordinarily run 6-month programs and then graduate them. And then I would go out and do shorter courses in various parts of Africa. Got around a lot of Africa that way, but I would go to a small college, for instance, and do something there a while, and then go to another one, and so forth and so on. And the people didn't have to come in to a different place. So that went on for 4 years. And by then, Betty and I didn't have any natural children, but we had, prior to going overseas, we adopted a son from an orphanage. And he was just a baby, and turned out to be a highly intelligent fellow. We named him John Stillman Bays because Stillman was Betty's maiden name. He turned out to be the greatest disappointment of our lives, in that he did not follow the road we wanted him to follow, and took another road, and finally drank himself to death at the age of 50. And left a widow and a daughter. Unfortunately, the mother has not allowed us to see the daughter, and she's now 18 years old. I find that pretty hard to stomach, but there isn't much we can do about it. So anyway, but while we were in that school, we also adopted a 9-year-old girl out of an orphanage in Kittley, where we were living then. And she was there because her family had broken down. Alcoholism was the cause. And she was, I think she was 8 years old. She turned out to be very keen. That is alert and knowledgeable, interested in things, but she was supposed to live in an orphanage. She had 2 brothers and at least 1 sister, but they didn't know each other then. Today she lives in Decatur, Alabama. She teaches school there. She's 60-some years old. She has 2 children, a son and a daughter. The son is married. Doesn't have any children. The daughter is a little older. She's 30, but she is never married and continues to live at home. So that's how that worked out. And of course our son, when he just simply fell over and died one day when he was living in, I don't know, somewhere in one of the middle states. He's buried out here in his remains, cremated, in a little cemetery out by Lake Blackwell.
Did either one of them go to OSU?
No, well, he went to the one of the universities in what was the state? Because he liked to live in one of the states in the middle of the country. He liked to be there. He had friends there. In other words, he had drinking buddies. And so, okay, we'll support you in school there, but then I could never get his attention. And he died at the age of 50, leaving a small daughter. And we've never been able to visit.
So maybe since she's 18, she can soon make her own decisions.
I would hope she will. Yeah.
Well, while you were in Africa teaching, did any of those students come over to here?
They blossomed quickly because we gave them lots of I think self-assurance that you can do this, there's no doubt. And they would come from very far different places. But when they left knowing that they could do things. And that that was some of the best experience I ever had, was through those several years of encouraging young people, and not only young men. At that time, African girls were not considered worth educating, but we said, wait a minute, we think we can educate the girls just as well as anybody. And it was remarkable how, when we took in a class of, let's say 4 or 5 young women, along with 6 or 8 or 10 men, pretty soon the women were outdistancing the men. Men were lazy, and the girls were running all over them.
Taking advantage of the opportunity.
Well, yeah. And of course, that made me just thrilled to pieces, because those girls were so capable. There wasn't any reason why they couldn't do it. They were just been told they couldn't do it. And when they came in and got assignments, and those assignments, when they finished them, were much better than the men were doing, I would say, what's wrong with you guys? You're getting run all over here. And so that would get them going a little bit.
Sounds like that was a good fit for the two of you.
Yeah, it was. Betty was excellent in her role, because she had been home economics trained here, and she worked at the Women's Training Center, teaching the women how to get along best in the growing city complex, and that worked out very well.
Did you stay overseas during your entire career then, or come
Well,
back?
we were there 4 years in that setting, and then we came back to this country. For the reason I came back was because I was not the head authority, and the head authority over the school did not really go the direction that I wanted to go. And the people who ran the whole setup said, well, he's our man. And so I threw in the towel and came back home. I didn't want to be somewhere where I couldn't do things that I knew needed to be done and never would be done under him. So I gave that up, came back home. And
Came back to Stillwater, or just to somewhere else in the States?
Let's see. I wish my brain were more attuned to
You're doing good.
what it did. You're gonna have to let me have a little more time on that one.
That's okay. When you retired, did you chose to come back here, or were you already here in Stillwater?
Chose to come back here, which may not have been the best choice. Betty has never really liked it that well. I thought it would be good for us. But it hasn't turned out to be that way. She went to school there too, but has not found it to be the Now, she has done some very, very capable work here in that, see, I'm an ordained Presbyterian minister. And I've had a lot of what I came back, after coming back from overseas, I started ministering to churches. And so we've been in lots of different churches. And so she decided that, she would work in women's ministry and so forth. And then all of a sudden the Presbytery, which is a group of churches that all work together, all of a sudden they made her what's called the stated clerk. And that's a person who is in charge of everything that happens. So she worked several years as a stated clerk of Cimarron Presbytery, which is composed of about 7 or 8 Presbyterian churches. She was always very esteemed in that position. Treated everybody very fairly, because you need somebody at the top who treats people fairly. And she made herself quite a distinction in her understanding of how you operate a church, or a mega church, something like that. That she became quite well suited, for that. And that was one of her most outstanding performances. Very, very smart about it.
Well, when you came back to Stillwater, it was coming home for you. What year? Do you remember what year you came back? Or how long you've been back? It was after you retired, so it had to be after you were 65-ish.
Trying to think where I was where I came back from. I can't think where my last place was before returning here. I think what I did was, in effect, retired from the ministry. That was it. I just retired from the ministry and moved back to here. Now, that didn't stop me from still participating in church affairs, but it took me out of pulpit work. And I didn't mind that, because I had a lot of pulpit work. Some of it works very well and some of it doesn't. So I was all right at being retired, and I've been retired ever since.
Well, Stillwater had changed quite a bit from college days till you came back.
Yeah, it's very different from what it was when we were here going to school. For instance, all around us, students are living. Students in this house, students in that house, students across the street, a whole gob of students down here. I'm rather disappointed to see how they're doing, because I shouldn't judge too harshly but a lot of them don't give me the impression of really knowing where they're going. And maybe you're not quite ready to go there. I don't know, maybe that's unfair, I don't know. But I think we used to have to work harder at it, maybe than some are working at it today. And,
Well, you worked for your dad to pay tuition,
yeah.
plus GI Bill.
Yeah.
Where would you go on dates? What places would you go to eat, for example? That might still be here. Was Shorty's still here? Was Shorty's here over by the Sonic that they just tore down?
Probably was, but I can't tell you.
I don't know if it was or not either.
That
I'm not from here, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, by and large, we don't eat out as much probably as we should, and as much as Betty would like to see. But
Well, back in college days, you probably didn't eat out much either.
no,
No. So,
we didn't really.
go to movies then?
We must have, but I'm drawing a blank on that. I don't really. I really the difference between myself and going to movies and things like that is I would rather be involved with people who are trying to make the world a better place. So I spend all of my time engaged in trying to improve the life of people in the United States, and I correspond with a whole lot of different people. I'm always behind in trying to keep up with those I want to keep up with. I really appreciate them. I donate as much money as I possibly can to their causes. And that's where my interest lies. So that I really don't dare take you back to my workroom and let you look in there. You might faint. But I just have to work within it. In other words, sometimes I get 15 or 20 letters a day from people who hope that I will support their cause. Well, I can support some causes, but I can't support 15 or 20 a day by any means. But I do what I can. So we always get a big mail delivery every day, and well, don't get any from Republicans, because I'm not a Republican. But I get all of these appeals from Democrats who are, most of them are trying to get back into their jobs or keep their jobs.
Well, do you spend time writing letters and stuff too? Using your journalism skills?
Well, no, I don't do. I do more than that. I actually send them money. But it's not much money. I mean, $20 is a big sum, but still you can't do that very often without feeling it. But I get letters every day. Like, there are probably half a dozen letters up there today asking for money. Well, you just have to sort out the ones that you can deal with and let the rest of it go. But my name is very widely known, very, very widely known. Not that I'm important, but it's because if you want a little help, that guy might help you. That's it. That's about it. I don't go to any big conflabs. I don't make any decisions. But I sure get a lot of requests.
Small things can be big things to other people, so.
Yeah. I hope I haven't taken you far.
No, you're doing great. The question that they have us ask then too is, how are you still using your journalism degree? And you are a little bit.
Yeah.
And how do you show OSU pride? Do you have an orange room? Do you have anything orange?
No, I don't have any. Well,
Okay.
I do. I have an orange cap, like a stocking cap that I wear when it's cold. In fact, I have two of them.
Do you go on campus much?
Rarely.
Rarely.
I'm probably way too much involved in my own doings and not sensitive enough to what's happening elsewhere. But I just don't have the time to deal with other things. I just deal with what I can here at home.
Well, you probably wouldn't have been able to get where you got without your degree from,
Oh yeah.
initial degree
That's
from
right.
OSU. Oh, AMC at that time was
Yeah.
Oklahoma A&M.
Yeah.
The name didn't change till after you were graduated, like 58, 57, somewhere through there. Did your brother go to OSU?
Yes.
Did he go?
Yes, he got his, I don't know what degree he has for sure, but his was in, had to do with oil exploration. He's been in the oil, worldwide oil exploration business.
Well, was the student union was just brand new at the time? You were there too, about the same time as the library was there. Did you go to dances?
No.
No. Okay.
I
Play bridge?
no.
Go to football games? Basketball games?
We went to some basketball games, I guess, back years ago, and some football games, but we don't go to either one now.
Yeah.
It's
Whole different environment now than it was
right.
then.
So
Been a pretty good life?
we've had a pretty good life.
Is she the one that does the music, or is that yours?
Oh, I'm not a musician.
Someone
She-
plays the piano.
Oh, she's very good.
Or organ, I guess that isn't.
Organist, yeah, oh yeah, she's an organist and pianist, yeah, very accomplished, yeah. But she doesn't do much with it anymore. But she has been able to. I mean, she used to whenever she appeared at a church, she usually did the organ or the piano.
Did she have brothers and sisters?
She had two sisters. One died within the last month. She was 3 years older, I think, or about 2 years older than Betty, and lived in Washington State. And then there's another sister that lives in northern Illinois, right up near what's the next state to the north. Anyway, she's the wife of a farmer, and it's about 7 years Betty's junior. But they are really close. These two sisters are really close, even though they can talk on the hour over the phone easily.
Now you and your brother could too.
Unfortunately, my brother and I don't believe in the same things.
Oh.
And that's not something new. He is pretty much always decided to keep his distance from me and run his own show. Mm-hmm. Now, he's very, very intelligent. He's had lots of important positions in the oil discovery industry. He's far more self-assured of his knowledge than I am, but we rarely discuss matters because we are totally opposite when it comes to politics. Mm. There's no point in even raising the word because it won't lead to anything good.
Well, that's been smart just to leave it alone.
Yeah.
A long way from that rural school out on Lake McMurtry, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is.
Well, is there anything else you want to add before we close?
Well, I hope I've given you something that's worthwhile. And,
sure.
I appreciate your interest very much.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you for having me.